Alright, welcome to the Boston Common. This is one of the main tourist attractions here in Boston, Massachusetts. And you can see this little guy, he's not afraid of me. He's just kind of chilling out, eating his little peanut there that he found, and he's just kind of relaxed, enjoying a beautiful autumn day here in Boston. And I'm going to go ahead and give you a tour of what is known as the Boston Common, and founded in 1634. This is a park right in the center of Boston, and it is just a beautiful day to be taking you for a walk through this historic spot. This was well, as I read up on the history here, there's quite a bit of history in the Boston Common, and I'm going to see if I can't grab my tour book out of my bag and then maybe just kind of read along as I take you through the Boston Common area. There are quite a few things to do here, as one might imagine. I'm just kind of struggling with my bag as I try to hold the camera and think of, to be honest with you, think of things to say. But so I'm gonna go ahead. I'm just gonna narrate just read from the guidebook. I went on what's called the Freedom Trail yesterday, and in doing so, I bought a complete guide to Boston's Freedom Trail. And they go on and they talk a lot about the Boston Common itself. And I'll just read to you from the book as I walk along. Couldn't have asked for a nicer day to do this. The Boston Common, America's oldest public park. The Freedom Trail begins at these 44 acres of open land in the middle of the city, land that has never been built upon. This was once the pasture of Boston's first white settler, William Blackstone. Blackstone came to the New World with a group of early colonists in 1622. When that settlement, about 15 miles south of here, failed, Blackstone moved north to what the Indians called Shamoot, or living waters. For 5 years he lived here as a hermit, accompanied only by his library of 200 books. When the Puritans arrived in 1630, they first settled in Charlestown, across the river from Blackstone's cottage. But when their water supply proved inadequate, Blackstone came and acquainted the governor of an excellent spring there with inviting him and soliciting him thither. Thus the Puritans moved across the river, and on September 7, 1630, they renamed Shamoot Boston, after a town in England from which many of them had come. So you can see this is quite a beautiful park. That's not in the book that I'm reading, but nonetheless, Blackstone, used to living alone, soon regretted his offer of hospitality. In 1634, he moved to Rhode Island and sold his pasture here to the townspeople for 30 pounds. He returned 25 years later, astride a white bull, to court and marry a local widow. Blackstone's pasture became the Common Land, or Common for short. For many years it was a training field for the militia, used for that purpose and for the feeding of cattle. In the occupation of Boston, this was a British Army camp. It was from the foot of the Common, near Charles Street, that redcoats embarked on their ill-fated expedition to Lexington and Concord in 1775. Not quite sure what this is here. You can see there's I don't know if this is a monument or what have you, but nonetheless, I'll walk up and take a look. So there you have it, folks. There is the Boston Common. And to think one day there was a bunch of redcoats that were in the area here. The cows were evicted in 1830 after Beacon Hill had become a fashionable residential area. By that time, several dangerous accidents had occurred, and besides, what wealthy Bostonian wanted to have cattle grazing in his front yard? Also on the common were the town gallows, where pirates, witches, and heretics, including Quakers, all met their untimely ends. But the common is best known as a place for public celebration and demonstrations. The 1766 repeal of the Stamp Act brought great rejoicing to this plot of land. In our time, thousands gathered here to hear Reverend Martin Luther King, and again to hear Mass from Pope John Paul II. Sarah Palin spoke here in 2010. Every fall, an annual Freedom Rally promotes the legalization of marijuana. Any amateur orator is assured an audience on the common, no matter how strange his or her view may seem. In 1851, for example, passerby were astounded to see a woman wearing pantaloon-like garments and extolling the virtues of such attire for women. Her name? Amelia Bloomer. Couldn't have asked for a nicer day than to be walking the Boston Common. And just on the other side of the street, looks like there's some rather pricey real estate, I would imagine. So if I'm not mistaken, just up ahead through the gate over yonder is the public garden, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that I will take some time and just continue the walk along. What an expansive area. I think that this would probably be comparable to what would be Central Park in New York. And I find it interesting that, having traveled the world, for some reason I don't feel the I don't know how to describe it. I don't feel the is the word excitement? You know, when you're overseas, when you're an American overseas, and you're walking through, you know, places in such countries as Hungary or Croatia or Germany or England or what have you, it takes on a whole different dynamic. And to be an American here in your own country, you know, it's a little bit different. But nonetheless, I would assume that there are people from around the world, whereas they would be quite thrilled to be walking the Boston Common as I am to be walking through parts of Europe or other parts of the world. There goes some type of a motorcade going up to what I assume is the Massachusetts State House. There's quite a convoy coming along. If it's not even maybe it's a funeral procession, perhaps. With the amount of police cars with their sirens on, I would imagine that we are looking at some type of a funeral procession. So here is there's a map of the Boston Common right here, and you can see where it actually lies in the city there. And there, I want to try to find my way over to the public garden, which should be right across the street here, if I'm not mistaken. I believe the public garden is just directly across the street. I am at the corner of Beacon and Charles Street right now. I'm gonna do what I shouldn't do and cross against the light. So now we are going into the public garden here in Boston. And I'm gonna actually stop the video and do this as a separate video, I believe. So I hope you enjoyed the tour of the Boston Common.